The bullet hit the dirt 3 inches from my boot, and I knew right then today was the day I'd stop running from my past. I jerked the reins hard. My horse, an old chestnut mare named Dust, snorted and skidded sideways. The Kansas heat pressed down like a hand on my chest, thick and mean. I'd been riding this same trail home for 8 years, every day the same, every sunset bleeding into the next. But that gunshot changed everything. Another crack split the air. This time I saw the muzzle flash, a brief orange tongue, from deep in the cottonwood grove ahead. I threw myself off Dust's back, hit the ground rolling, came up behind a scatter of rocks barely big enough to hide a man. My heart hammered. The prairie grass around me stood dead still, not even a whisper of wind. Then I heard her. Not screaming, not crying, just breathing hard, fast, angry. A woman's voice cut through the heat haze. "You missed again, you sorry excuse for a lawman." I risked a look over the rocks. The grove opened up maybe 40 yards ahead, cottonwoods thick as old secrets. Hanging upside down from a low branch was a young woman, ankles bound with rope, wrists tied behind her back. Her dark hair fell toward the ground like a curtain. Her dress had slipped down past her knees, showing dusty stockings and the pale skin of her calves. But she wasn't crying. She was working a piece of broken glass against the rope, her fingers bloody, sawing with grim determination. Standing 10 feet from her was a man in a deputy's uniform, Dixon May. I recognized him even from this distance, tall, lean, with a face like weathered leather. He held a rifle loose in one hand, pointed at the base of the tree, not at her, at the tree, like he was playing some kind of sick game. Dixon fired again. Wood splintered near the woman's head. She flinched, but kept sawing. "Next one goes in your leg," Dixon called out. His voice carried that easy confidence of a man who'd never been told no. "Then we'll see how tough you are." My hands moved before my brain caught up. I pulled my Colt from its holster, checked the cylinder. 6 rounds. I hadn't fired this gun in anger for 8 years. Not since the day I found Clara, my wife. Gone 8 summers now, but the wound still felt fresh as morning dew. I saw her in my mind, clear as photograph paper, tied up just like this woman, wrists behind her back, hair falling loose. But Clara hadn't been sawing rope. Clara had already been dead when I found her, her skin cold despite the summer heat, her eyes open and empty and accusing. The memory hit me like a fist. I'd spent 8 years asking myself the same questions. Why hadn't I been there? Why hadn't I protected her? Why had I chosen to ride into town that morning instead of staying home? The woman in the tree grunted, and the sound pulled me back. She'd cut through another strand of rope. Her fingers were slick with blood now, but she didn't stop. I made my choice. I stood up from behind the rocks, raised the Colt, sighted down the barrel. Dixon had his back to me, watching the woman like a cat watches a mouse in a corner. I aimed for his hand, the one holding the rifle. "Drop it," I called out. Dixon spun fast, faster than a man his age should move. The rifle came up. I squeezed the trigger. The Colt bucked in my hand. The sound rolled across the prairie like thunder. Dixon's rifle exploded in a spray of wood and metal. He screamed, clutching his hand. Blood ran between his fingers. The rifle hit the ground in 2 pieces. I was already moving, running toward the tree. Dust followed behind me, trained to come when called. The woman twisted her head, trying to see me through the curtain of her hair. "Don't you dare cut me down," she snapped. "I've almost got it." I ignored her, pulled my knife from my belt, grabbed the rope around her ankles. The hemp was thick, rough, tied with the kind of knots a man learns in the cavalry. I sawed through it in 3 strokes. She dropped. I caught her by the waist, one arm around her middle, and lowered her to the ground, as gentle as I could manage. She was light, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, all bone and fury. The moment her feet touched dirt, she shoved me away hard. "I didn't ask you to save me." I stepped back, hands up. "Sorry, ma'am. Looked like you needed help." She yanked her dress down, face flushed red. Not from embarrassment, from rage. I had it under control. Dixon was still screaming, rolling on the ground. I glanced at him, then back at the woman. Up close I could see she was young, maybe 23 or 24, freckles across her nose, green eyes that burned like prairie fire. Her fingers were cut deep from the glass, blood dripping steady onto the dirt. "You're bleeding," I said. "I'm aware." She kicked at the rope that had bound her ankles. Then she looked past me and her eyes went wide. "Get down!" I didn't think. I dropped. Something whistled over my head. A gunshot followed, loud and close. I rolled to my left, came up with the Colt raised. 5 men stepped out from the trees. All of them wore deputy badges. All of them held rifles. They fanned out in a semicircle, cutting off any escape. Dixon climbed to his feet, cradling his ruined hand. Blood soaked his sleeve dark and wet. But he was smiling, actually smiling. "Garrett Walker," he said, voice tight with pain, "you just made the worst mistake of your miserable life." I kept the Colt steady, tracking from one deputy to the next. "Looks to me like you're the one bleeding, Dixon. You shot an officer of the law." Dixon took a step closer. The other deputies moved with him, tightening the circle. "That's a hanging offense in Kansas, and I've got 5 witnesses." The woman moved beside me. "Honey sauce te dis me," close enough that I could feel her shaking. Not from fear, from fury. "He was torturing me," she said, voice like broken glass. Dixon's smile widened. "She's a murderer, killed her own uncle. I was bringing her in and she resisted arrest, had to restrain her for her own safety." "Liar!" The woman lunged forward. I caught her arm, held her back. "Easy," I said quietly. Then louder to Dixon, "Show me the warrant." Dixon's smile flickered, just for a second. Then he reached into his coat with his good hand and pulled out a folded paper. "Right here, signed by Judge Hayes himself." He tossed it toward me. It landed in the dirt between us. I kept my gun trained on the deputies and bent down, snatched up the paper with my left hand. Unfolded it one-handed. I'd worked as a clerk at the courthouse for 2 years before I bought my ranch. I knew what a proper warrant looked like. I knew Judge Hayes' signature, had seen it 100 times on land deeds and contracts. This wasn't it. The signature was close. Someone had practiced it, gotten the loops and curls almost right. But the pressure was wrong. Judge Hayes had arthritis in his right hand. His signature always had a little tremor in the downstrokes. This one was smooth, confident, fake. And there was something else. The ink was fresh, not dried. When I tilted the paper in the sunlight, I could see it shimmer slightly, still wet in the creases. "This warrant," I said slowly, "has yesterday's date on it." Dixon's smile vanished. "So?" "So the ink's still wet." One of the other deputies shifted his weight. His rifle barrel dipped just a fraction. I filed that away. Nervous men make mistakes. The woman beside me went very still. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. "You calling me a liar, Walker?" Dixon's voice dropped low, dangerous. Before I could answer, hoofbeats, fast and hard, coming from the direction of town. Dixon's eyes flicked toward the sound, just for a moment. But it was enough. A single rider crested the low ridge, horse, at full gallop. The sun was behind them, turning them into a black silhouette against the sky. But I knew that silhouette, knew the way she sat a horse, straight-backed and proud. Knew the silver star pinned to her vest. Grace Tanner, sheriff of Dodge City, my sister-in-law, the woman who'd spent 8 years blaming me for Clara's death. Grace pulled her horse to a sliding stop, dust rising in clouds around her. She dismounted in one smooth motion, Winchester already in her hands, not pointed at anyone, just ready. "Dixon," she said. Her voice was flat, controlled. The voice of someone who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. "What's going on here?" Dixon straightened up, clutching his bleeding hand. "Sheriff Tanner, thank God you're here. This man," he pointed at me with his chin, "assaulted me, shot me while I was conducting a lawful arrest." Grace's eyes moved from Dixon to me, to the woman, to the 5 deputies. Her face showed nothing. She'd always been good at that, hiding what she felt. "That true, Garrett?" she asked. I met her gaze. 8 years since we'd spoken more than 2 words to each other. 8 years of passing each other on the street, eyes sliding away. 8 years of her silent accusation. "He had this woman strung up like a deer carcass," I said, shooting at her. I stopped him. "She's a criminal," Dixon snapped. "I have a warrant." Grace held out her hand. "Let me see it." Dixon hesitated. Just a heartbeat. Then he nodded at one of the other deputies. The man picked up the warrant from where I'd dropped it and handed it to Grace. She read it slowly, lips moving slightly. When she looked up, her eyes had gone cold. "Dixon," she said quietly, "why does this warrant have yesterday's date, but the ink is still wet?" Dixon opened his mouth, closed it. His good hand moved toward his belt, toward the pistol holstered there. Everything happened at once. Grace's Winchester came up. I shifted my aim to Dixon. The 5 deputies raised their rifles. The woman beside me grabbed my arm. And Dixon drew. I didn't think, didn't aim, just pulled the trigger. The Colt roared. Dixon jerked backward, but I'd missed his gun hand. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He hit the ground hard. Then Grace was moving, stepping between me and the other deputies. "Stand down," she ordered. "All of you. Now." The deputies froze. Grace was their boss. They couldn't shoot her. Not without committing murder in front of witnesses, but they didn't lower their rifles either. Grace's voice went soft, dangerous. I said, "Stand down." One by one, the rifles lowered. Grace moved to Dixon, kicked his pistol away. He was still conscious, gasping, blood spreading across his chest. She knelt beside him, pressed her hand to the wound, not gentle, not cruel, just stopping the bleeding. "You shot me," Dixon wheezed. "You shot an officer." "My brother-in-law shot you," Grace said. "And from where I'm standing, you drew first." Dixon tried to laugh. It came out as a wet cough. "You're going to cover for him? Your own deputy?" "I'm going to do my job." Grace looked up at the 5 other deputies. "Get him on a horse. Take him to Doc Wilson. And then you're all suspended pending investigation." "Sheriff, you can't just—" "I can and I am. Now move." They moved. Reluctantly, but they moved. 2 of them lifted Dixon, carried him toward the horses. The other 3 backed away slowly, rifles still in hand, but pointed at the ground. Within 5 minutes, they were gone. Dust settling behind them. Grace stood up slowly, wiped Dixon's blood on her pants. Then she turned to face me and the woman. For a long moment nobody spoke. The prairie stretched out around us, empty and endless. A crow called somewhere distant. Grace's eyes found mine. "You saved my life," I blinked. "What?" "Dixon was drawing on me, not you. I saw his eyes. He was going to shoot me." Her voice cracked, just slightly. "You stopped him." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Grace looked at the woman. "Who are you?" The woman lifted her chin. Blood still dripped from her fingers, but she stood straight. "Eliza Hayes. Judge Arthur Hayes was my father." Grace's face went pale. "Was?" "Dixon shot him 3 days ago." Eliza's voice was steady. Too steady. The kind of steady that comes from screaming until you've got no voice left, then finding a new one made of iron. Made it look like suicide. Then he came for me. Grace closed her eyes, opened them. "Judge Hayes signed this warrant. My father's been dead for 3 days. Dead men don't sign warrants." The silence stretched. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud in my ears. Grace looked at me again, really looked at me for the first time in 8 years. Her eyes were wet. "Garrett," she said softly, "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For blaming you." Her voice broke. "For Clara, for everything. I was wrong." Something in my chest unclenched. Something I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. "You weren't wrong," I said. "I should have been there. Should have protected her." "No." Grace shook her head. "You couldn't have known. None of us could have known." Eliza shifted beside me. "I hate to interrupt this moment, but my fingers are bleeding and I'd really like to leave before those deputies come back with reinforcements." Grace nodded. "Right. We need to get to town, all 3 of us. We need to figure out what the hell is going on." I glanced at Eliza. Her face was pale now, shock starting to set in. Her bloody fingers were shaking. "Can you ride?" I asked. She glared at me. I can do anything a man can do, and I can do it bleeding. Despite everything, I almost smiled. That wasn't what I asked. Her glare softened, just a fraction. Yes, I can ride. Grace mounted her horse. I whistled for Dust, helped Eliza up into the saddle, then swung up behind her. She stiffened when my arms came around her to hold the reins. Relax, I said quietly. I'm not going to hurt you. I know, she said. If you wanted to hurt me, you would have let Dixon keep shooting. We rode toward Dodge City. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, like blood on water. Behind us, the cottonwood grove disappeared into shadow. I kept thinking about Clara, about finding her tied up, cold and still, about 8 years of wondering if I could have saved her. And now, here was Eliza, alive, angry, bleeding. I'd saved her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just stepped into something much bigger than a corrupt deputy and a forged warrant. Something that had roots going back 8 years, back to the day Clara died. Grace rode ahead of us, back straight. She hadn't looked back once. Eliza leaned back slightly against my chest, not for comfort, just exhausted. Thank you, she said so quietly I almost didn't hear it. You're welcome. I still would have gotten free on my own. This time I did smile. I believe you. Dodge City appeared on the horizon, lights beginning to glow in windows, smoke rising from chimneys, the ordinary rhythms of an ordinary town. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. I'd spent 8 years living quiet, 8 years keeping my head down, tending my ranch, avoiding people. 8 years telling myself that staying out of trouble was the same thing as healing. But grief doesn't heal through silence. It festers. And I'd let mine fester so long it had turned into something else. Something cold and hard and hollow. Eliza had called me a savior. But she was wrong. She'd saved me. By hanging from that tree, by refusing to scream, by fighting even when fighting seemed hopeless. She'd reminded me what it felt like to be awake. We reached the edge of town as full dark settled. Grace led us not toward the sheriff's office, but toward a small house on the outskirts. Her house. We dismounted in silence. Grace unlocked the door, lit a lamp. The interior was sparse, clean. A soldier's house, not a home. Sit, Grace said to Eliza, pointing to a chair by the fireplace. Eliza sat. Grace brought water, cloth, whiskey. She cleaned Eliza's fingers with efficient movements, wrapped them in clean bandages. I stood by the door, watching, feeling useless. When Grace finished, she poured 3 glasses of whiskey, handed one to me, one to Eliza, kept one for herself. To Clara, Grace said quietly. I raised my glass. To Clara. Eliza looked between us, confused, but she raised her glass too. We drank. The whiskey burned going down. Good burn, clean burn. Grace sat down across from Eliza. Tell me everything, from the beginning. Eliza didn't cry. That's what struck me most as she told her story. Her voice stayed level, controlled, even when she described finding her father's body. 3 days ago, she began. I came home from the market. The door was open. That was the first thing I noticed. Papa never left doors open. Grace leaned forward, elbows on her knees. I stayed by the door, glass of whiskey warming in my hand. I called his name, no answer, so I went to his study. That's where I found him. Eliza's hands tightened around her own glass. The bandages were already seeping red at the fingertips. He was slumped over his desk. There was a gun on the floor. A note. The note said he couldn't live with what he'd done, that he was sorry. What had he done? Grace asked. The note didn't say, but I knew it was fake. Papa's handwriting, yes, but not his words. He would never apologize without explaining why. He was a judge. Specificity mattered to him. I found myself nodding. Judge Hayes had handled the deed transfer when I bought my ranch. Every word had been precise, careful, no room for ambiguity. Dixon arrived 20 minutes later, Eliza continued. Said someone had reported hearing a gunshot. He took one look at the scene and declared it suicide. Case closed. Did you object? Grace asked. Of course I objected. I told him it was murder. Told him to look closer, to question people, to investigate properly. Eliza's jaw tightened. He told me I was in shock, that grief makes people see conspiracies where there's only tragedy. Then he offered to help me through this difficult time. The way she said those last words made my skin crawl. 2 days later, Eliza said, I received a visit from a lawyer. He informed me that my father had debts, substantial debts, to a man named Luther Cade. Grace went very still. Luther Cade. You know him? I asked. Everyone knows him. Grace's voice was flat. Richest man in 3 counties. Owns half the businesses in Dodge City, including the bank. Eliza nodded. The lawyer said my father owed Cade $15,000. Unless I could pay immediately, Cade would foreclose on our property. All of it. The house, the land, everything. $15,000, I said slowly. That's not debt, that's theft. I said the same thing. The lawyer showed me documents, loans my father supposedly signed, except I'd never seen those papers before, and Papa never mentioned owing anyone money. Grace stood up, paced to the window, looked out at the dark street. So Cade kills your father, forges loan documents, and takes your land. But why involve Dixon? Because I went to Dixon, Eliza said quietly. I showed him the loan papers, told him they were forgeries, asked him to investigate Cade. Let me guess, I said. He refused. Worse, he arrested me, said I was slandering a respected businessman, said I was mentally unstable from grief. He locked me in a cell overnight. Grace turned from the window. On what charge? Disturbing the peace, Eliza laughed, but there was no humor in it. The next morning he let me go, said it was a warning, told me to accept Cade's offer and leave town quietly. If I didn't, things would get worse. So you ran, I said. I tried to run, got 3 miles out of town before Dixon caught up with me. He had 4 men with him. They dragged me into that grove, tied me up. Dixon said he was going to teach me what happens to women who don't know their place. Her voice didn't waver, but her hands shook. Grace moved to Eliza's side, knelt down, put her hand over Eliza's bandaged fingers. You're safe now, Grace said. I promise you that. Eliza met her eyes. Can you promise Dixon won't come back? Can you promise Cade won't take my father's land? Can you promise any of this matters? Grace didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was soft. No, I can't promise any of that, but I can promise I'll try. Eliza pulled her hands away, stood up. Trying isn't good enough. My father tried. He tried to be honest, to be good, to follow the law. And someone murdered him for it. She turned to me. You shot Dixon without hesitation, without asking questions. Why? I met her gaze. Because I saw a man hurting a woman, and I decided that was reason enough. Even though you didn't know me? Even though I could have been exactly what Dixon said I was? A murderer? Yes. Why? I looked down at my empty glass, saw my reflection distorted in the curved bottom. Because 8 years ago I didn't act fast enough, and someone I loved died. I won't make that mistake again. Silence filled the room. Outside, somewhere distant, a dog barked. Grace cleared her throat. We need a plan. Dixon's wounded, but he's not dead. He'll come back with more men, and if Cade is really behind this, he has resources we can't match. Then we need evidence, I said. Real evidence. Something that proves Cade forged those loans. Something that proves he killed Judge Hayes. Eliza shook her head. There is no evidence. Cade's too careful. My father's notes, his files, everything was in his study, and Dixon cleared it all out after declaring it suicide. What about your father's clerk? Grace asked. Judges keep clerks, someone who handles paperwork. Thomas Reed, but he disappeared the same day my father died. No one's seen him since. Grace and I exchanged glances. A missing clerk, a dead judge, forged documents. It was starting to form a picture, an ugly one. There's something else, Eliza said. She reached into her dress pocket, pulled out a small brass key. The morning Papa died, he gave me this. Said if anything happened to him, I should go to the bank. There's a safety deposit box, number 47. Grace took the key, turned it over in her palm. What's in the box? I don't know. I never got the chance to find out. Dixon arrested me before I could go. The bank's owned by Cade, I said. If we walk in there asking to open a box belonging to a dead man, we'll have trouble. Then we don't ask permission. Grace handed the key back to Eliza. We go at night, break in, get whatever's in that box. I stared at her. You're a sheriff. You're talking about burglary. I'm talking about justice. Grace's eyes were hard. Dixon works for me, which means I'm responsible for his actions. If he's dirty, that's on me, and I'll be damned if I let him get away with it. This was a Grace I didn't recognize. 8 years ago, she'd been by the book. Follow the rules. Trust the system. Clara's death had changed her too, I realized. Made her harder. Or maybe just more willing to do what needed doing. When? I asked. Tonight, late, after midnight, when the streets are clear. Eliza looked between us. You're both willing to risk everything for me? Someone you just met? No, Grace said. We're risking everything for your father, for Clara, for every person who trusted the law to protect them and got betrayed. I set my glass down. I should go home, feed my horse, get supplies. I'll come back in a few hours. Take Eliza with you, Grace said. She can't stay here. If Dixon comes looking, this is the first place he'll check. Eliza started to protest. Grace cut her off. My house isn't safe. Garrett's ranch is outside town, remote, defensible. You'll be safer there. I don't need a bodyguard, Eliza said. No, I agreed. But you do need a place to sleep, and my ranch has spare rooms, unless you'd rather spend the night in a jail cell. She glared at me, then nodded once. Fine, but I'm not helpless. I never said you were. Grace walked us to the door. Before we left, she touched my arm. Garrett, she said quietly, about Clara, about what I said, all those years. Don't. I shook my head. Not now. We'll talk, later, when this is over. She nodded. Be careful. You too. Eliza and I rode through the dark streets of Dodge City. Most windows were dark now. A few saloons still glowed with lamplight and noise. We kept to the shadows, moved quiet. When we cleared the edge of town, I let dust pick up to a canter. The prairie opened up around us, vast and black under a sky thick with stars. Eliza sat in front of me, her back straight, not leaning into me, not pulling away, just present. Your wife, she said after a while, the one who died, what was she like? I didn't answer right away. Talking about Clara hurt. It always hurt. But maybe pain was better than numbness. Strong, I finally said, stubborn, kind. She saw the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. She sounds like someone worth loving. She was. And Grace blames you for her death. Blamed. Past tense. I think maybe tonight changed that. Eliza was quiet for a moment. Then, do you blame yourself? The question hung in the air like smoke. I thought about lying. Thought about saying no, I'd moved on, I'd forgiven myself. But Eliza deserved honesty. Yes, I said, every day. Why? What happened? So I told her about the morning Clara died, about how I'd ridden into town early to pick up supplies, how I'd stopped at the saloon for a drink with some ranchers, how I'd stayed longer than I should have, talking, laughing, wasting time, how I'd come home to find our door broken open, how I'd found Clara in the bedroom tied up, cold, how the doctor said she'd been dead for hours, how if I'd come home when I should have, I might have saved her. They never caught who did it, I said. Never even found a suspect. Just another random act of violence on the frontier. That's what the sheriff said. Random. But you don't believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. We rode in silence for a while. The ranch came into view, a dark shape against darker prairie. Single story. Wood frame, barn out back. Nothing special. Just home. I dismounted, helped Eliza down, led Dust to the barn, unsaddled her, gave her water and oats. Eliza followed me, watching. You live here alone? She asked. For 8 years. That's a long time to be alone. Sometimes alone is easier than the alternative. I showed her the spare room. It had been Clara's sewing room once. I'd cleaned it out years ago, couldn't stand to look at her unfinished projects. Now it was just a bed, a chair, a window. It's not much, I said. It's perfect. Eliza sat on the bed, winced. The rope burns on her ankles were probably hurting. I brought her water, clean cloth, salve. For your ankles. She took them without comment. I turned to leave. Garrett? I stopped in the doorway. Why did you really save me? And don't say it was just because you saw a woman in trouble. I looked back at her. She was watching me with those green eyes, sharp and searching. Because, I said slowly, when I saw you hanging there, fighting, refusing to give up, I remembered something I'd forgotten. What it feels like to want to live. I left before she could respond, went to my own room, sat on the edge of my bed. The photograph was still on the nightstand. Clara, smiling, one hand on her swollen belly, 6 months pregnant, 2 months before she died. I picked it up, traced the edge of the frame with my thumb. I met someone today, I said to the photograph. Felt foolish. But I'd been talking to Clara's picture for 8 years. Too late to stop now. She's in trouble, bad trouble, and I'm going to help her. Clara smiled back at me, frozen in time. I know what you'd say, that I should be careful, that I should think things through. But Clara, I've been careful for 8 years. I've thought everything through, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being safe. I set the photograph down, lay back on the bed, closed my eyes. Sleep didn't come. My mind kept racing. Dixon, Cade, the safety deposit box, Grace's face when she apologized, and Eliza. The way she'd looked at me when she said I'd saved her. The way she'd pushed me away immediately after, the strength in her voice even when she was describing her father's murder. She reminded me of Clara, not in looks, not in mannerisms, but in that core of steel, that refusal to break. I must have dozed eventually, because the next thing I knew, gray dawn light was seeping through the window. I sat up, groggy, reached for my boots. A sound from outside. Horses, multiple horses. I grabbed my gun, moved to the window, peered out through the curtain. 6 riders, coming fast across the prairie. Leading them was Dixon May, arm in a sling, but very much alive. Behind me, I heard Eliza's door open, heard her sharp intake of breath. They found us, she said. I checked my Colt. 5 rounds left. Not enough. Dixon and his men reined in 50 yards from the house, spread out in a line. All of them had rifles. Dixon's voice carried clear in the morning air. Garrett Walker, send out the girl and we'll let you live. I looked at Eliza. She looked back at me. I won't let them take you, I said. You don't have a choice. There's 6 of them. I don't care if there's 60, she almost smiled. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Dixon called out again. You've got 1 minute, Walker, then we start shooting. I moved to the door, opened it a crack, shouted back, You want her? You'll have to come through me. Dixon shook his head. So be it. The first rifle shot shattered the window. Glass exploded inward. Eliza screamed. I pulled her down behind the heavy wooden table, flipped it on its side for cover. More shots. The walls splintered. A lamp exploded. The air filled with gunpowder smoke and the smell of fear. I fired back, once, twice, 3 times, heard someone yell, couldn't tell if I'd hit anyone. This was it. This was how it ended, pinned down in my own house, outnumbered, outgunned. But I'd made my choice. I'd chosen to fight, for Eliza, for Clara's memory, for something bigger than my own survival. If I died here, at least I'd die trying. Then, impossibly, the shooting stopped. I risked a look over the table. What I saw made no sense. Grace Tanner sat on her horse between my house and Dixon's men, alone, unarmed, hands raised. Stand down, Dixon, she shouted. That's an order. Dixon laughed. You're not my sheriff anymore, Grace. Luther Cade fired you this morning. I answer to him now. Grace's face showed nothing. Then I'll answer to God. She spurred her horse forward, straight toward Dixon's line. Shoot me if you want, she called. But you'll have to explain to the whole town why you murdered an unarmed woman. Dixon's hand moved to his rifle. The other men looked at each other, uncertain. Grace kept riding, steady, fearless. She reached Dixon, looked him in the eye. You want Garrett and Eliza, she said. You'll have to go through me first. For a long moment nobody moved. The prairie wind picked up, stirring dust. Then, from the direction of town, more horses appeared. 12 riders, no, 24, citizens of Dodge City, armed with whatever they could grab, pitchforks, hunting rifles, pistols. Leading them was an old man I recognized, Samuel Chen, who ran the general store. He'd been friends with Judge Hayes. "Sheriff Tanner's right," Samuel called out. "You want to kill these people? You'll have to kill all of us." Dixon looked around, at the townspeople, at his own men, at Grace. His face twisted with rage, but he wasn't stupid. He was outnumbered now. "This isn't over," he said. Then he turned his horse and rode away. His men followed. Grace dismounted, walked to the house. I met her at the door. "How did you know?" I asked. "I didn't, but I know Luther Cade. I know how men like him operate. They can't resist making a show of power." She glanced back at the townspeople. "And I know this town. People love Judge Hayes. Once word spread that you were protecting his daughter, they wanted to help." Eliza appeared beside me. She looked at Grace with something like wonder. "You risked your life for me." "No," Grace said. "I risked it for what's right." Samuel and the other townspeople gathered around. They were angry, scared, but they were there. "What now, Sheriff?" Samuel asked. Grace took a breath. "Now we get that evidence. We prove Cade killed Judge Hayes, and we take back our town." I looked at Eliza. She looked at me. Then she nodded. "Tonight," she said, "we break into the bank." The townspeople began to disperse. Grace stayed behind. The three of us stood on my porch watching the sun climb higher. "Clara would have been proud of you," Grace said to me. I shook my head. "Clara would have told me I was being reckless." "Yes, and then she would have helped you anyway." Grace smiled, sad, gentle. That's who she was. For the first time in 8 years, thinking about Clara didn't just hurt. It also felt like coming home. Eliza touched my arm. "We should prepare. If we're really doing this tonight, we need a plan." She was right. We had hours before dark, hours to figure out how to break into a bank owned by the most powerful man in Kansas, hours to prepare for what came next. But for just a moment, I let myself stand there, on my porch, with two women who reminded me what courage looked like. The prairie stretched out before us, endless, beautiful, dangerous. Somewhere out there, Dixon was regrouping. Cade was planning his next move. But here, in this moment, we were alive. We were together. We were fighting back, and that was enough. The sun was setting when we rode out toward Silver Creek, 3 horses moving through the tall grass, heading west into country that hadn't seen law in 20 years. Grace led the way, her back straight, despite the Winchester across her lap. Eliza rode beside her, quiet, focused. I brought up the rear, scanning the horizon for riders. We weren't going to the bank, not yet. That morning, after the townspeople dispersed, Grace had pulled out a telegram. It had arrived at her office 2 days before Dixon tried to hang Eliza. The message was brief, unsigned, just 4 words and a location. "I have proof. Silver Creek. Thomas Reed." Grace had dismissed it as a crank at first, but now, with everything that had happened, she wondered. Silver Creek was a mining town that died when the silver ran out. 40 miles west of Dodge City, nothing there now but abandoned buildings and ghosts. Unless someone was hiding there, someone who knew the truth about Judge Hayes. The clerk, Thomas Reed. We rode in silence for the first hour. The prairie gave way to broken country, rocky hills and dry creek beds. The kind of land that swallows people up and doesn't give them back. Eliza finally spoke. "Tell me about your wife." I glanced at Grace. She was listening too, though she pretended not to. "What do you want to know?" I asked. "How did you meet?" The memory came back soft and clear, like light through water. Church social. She was selling pies to raise money for the orphanage. I bought 3, couldn't finish one. Grace smiled despite herself. "Clara made terrible pies, burned the crusts every time." "But she kept trying," I said. "That's what I loved about her. She never gave up." Eliza was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I didn't expect. My mother was like that too, stubborn, refusing to quit even when quitting made sense. I looked at her. Tell me about your mother. Eliza's hands tightened on the reins. Her name was Catherine. She died when I was 8. They said it was pneumonia. But it wasn't, Grace said gently. No, Eliza's voice dropped. I remember the doctor coming, Dr. Benjamin Hollis. He examined her, shook his head, said it was pneumonia. Nothing to be done. She paused. The only sound was hoofbeats and wind. But I remember her symptoms. Fever, yes, but also tremors, seizures. Things that didn't match pneumonia. Even at 8 years old, I knew something was wrong. I asked my father. He told me to trust the doctor, to trust the adults. Her voice broke slightly. I watched her die over 3 days, watched her suffer. She'd call out for my father, beg him to help her, but he just sat there holding her hand, crying, saying he was sorry over and over. I'm sorry, Catherine. I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? I asked. I didn't understand then, but now I think I do. He knew. He knew it wasn't pneumonia. He knew someone had poisoned her, but he was too afraid to act, too afraid of whoever was threatening him. Grace's voice was hard. Luther Cade. Yes, Cade wanted my father to approve his railroad contracts, to rule in his favor. My mother found out about the bribes. She confronted Cade, told him she'd go to the territorial authorities. And Cade killed her, I said. Made it look like illness. Bribed Dr. Hollis to falsify the death certificate. My father knew, but he had me to protect, so he stayed quiet. Kept taking Cade's money, hated himself every day for 15 years. Eliza looked at me, her green eyes wet. That's why I wanted to become a doctor, so I'd never feel that helpless again. So no child would have to watch their mother die while adults who knew better did nothing. We rode in silence after that, the weight of her story settling over us like dust. As twilight deepened, Grace said quietly, Clara came to see me the morning she died. She was scared, said she'd seen something, heard something. She wouldn't tell me what, just said she needed to talk to Sheriff Wilkes. I felt my chest tighten. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I thought she was being paranoid. She'd been anxious ever since the baby. I told her to rest, to stop worrying. I told her everything was fine. Grace's voice cracked. And then I went to work. And when I came home, you were standing on my porch telling me she was dead. What do you think she saw? Eliza asked. I think she saw Luther Cade, or heard him. Maybe she overheard him threatening someone, making a deal, planning something. Grace's hands tightened on her reins. And I think he found out, and killed her for it. The pieces were fitting together now. Catherine Hayes, 15 years ago. Clara, 8 years ago. Judge Hayes, 3 days ago. All killed for knowing too much. All silenced by the same man. We're going to stop him, I said, whatever it takes. Silver Creek appeared as the last light faded. A cluster of buildings huddled in a narrow valley. Most were collapsed. A few still had roofs. No lights, no smoke. Dead. We dismounted at the edge of town, tied the horses. Grace pulled her Winchester. I checked my Colt. Eliza picked up a rock, hefted it. Better than nothing. Where do we start? I asked. Grace pointed to the largest building still standing. 2 stories, probably the old hotel. There. We moved through the ghost town like shadows. The wind picked up, whistling through broken windows. Somewhere, a door creaked on rusted hinges. The sound made my skin crawl. The hotel door hung open. Grace went in first, rifle ready. I followed. Eliza stayed close behind me. The interior was dark, smelled like rot and animal droppings. Our boots crunched on broken glass. Hello? Grace called out. Her voice echoed. Thomas Reed? If you're here, we need to talk. We're friends of Judge Hayes. Nothing. Just wind and silence. We searched the first floor. Empty rooms, collapsed furniture, proof that people had lived here once, loved here, died here. The stairs to the second floor looked treacherous. Half the steps were missing. Grace tested the railing. It held. I'll go, she said. You two wait here. No, Eliza said. We stay together. Grace looked like she wanted to argue, then nodded. We climbed carefully. The stairs groaned but held. The second-floor hallway was narrow, dark. Doors on both sides, most open, one closed. Grace approached the closed door, knocked. "Mr. Reed, we're not here to hurt you. Judge Hayes is dead. His daughter needs help. If you know anything, please." A sound from inside, shuffling. Then a voice, thin and scared. "Go away, please. Just go away." "We can't do that," Grace said. "We need your help. We need the truth." Silence. Then the sound of a lock sliding back. The door opened. A man stood there, maybe 50 years old, gaunt, unshaven, eyes red from lack of sleep or too much whiskey or both. He held a pistol, but his hand shook so badly it was almost useless. "You shouldn't have come," he said. "They'll kill you. They kill everyone." "Who?" I asked. "Who kills everyone?" "Cade, Dixon, all of them." Thomas Reed backed into the room. We followed. The space was small, a bed, a table, bottles everywhere, empty bottles. Reed sat on the bed, set the pistol down, covered his face with his hands. "I'm a coward. I should have stayed, should have told someone, but I ran. God help me, I ran." Eliza knelt in front of him, gentle, like approaching a wounded animal. "Mr. Reed, please, tell us what you know about my father." Reed looked up, saw Eliza's face. Something broke in him. He started crying, not quiet tears, sobbing, the kind of crying that comes from a soul that's been holding too much for too long. Grace and I exchanged glances, waited. When Reed finally composed himself, he wiped his eyes with a dirty sleeve. "Your father was a good man, Miss Hayes, the best man I ever knew, and I watched them destroy him." "Who destroyed him?" Eliza asked. "Luther Cade, but not just him. There were others, judges, lawyers, businessmen. They had an arrangement. Cade would bribe them, pay them to rule in his favor, approve his contracts, look the other way when he broke laws." "For how long?" Grace asked. 15 years, maybe longer, I don't know. I only found out 3 years ago when I started working for Judge Hayes." Reed stood up, went to the window, looked out at the dead town. "Your father tried to fight them, tried to rule honestly, but Cade threatened him, said if he didn't cooperate, something would happen to his family." Eliza's breath caught. "My mother," Reed nodded. "Judge Hayes told me the story once, when he was drunk. Your mother discovered the bribes, found documents in his study. She confronted Cade directly, told him she'd go to the federal authorities. And Cade killed her," Eliza said. Her voice was flat, empty. "Paid Dr. Hollis to poison her, made it look like pneumonia. Your father knew, but he had you to protect. So he stayed quiet, kept taking Cade's money, hated himself every day." Reed turned back to face us. 3 months ago, Judge Hayes told me he couldn't do it anymore, couldn't live with the guilt. He was going to confess everything. "Write it all down, send it to the territorial governor." "The safety deposit box," I said. Reed nodded. He put all the evidence there, names, dates, amounts, proof of 15 years of corruption, and something else, something about a woman named Clara Walker. My heart stopped. What about Clara? "I don't know the details, but Judge Hayes said her death wasn't random, said Cade had her killed because she'd overheard something, a conversation, a plan. I'm sorry, that's all I know." Grace's voice was ice. "Where's Dr. Hollis now?" "Last I heard, he was hiding in a mining camp north of here, place called Silverado, about 20 miles. He's been drinking himself to death for 15 years, trying to forget what he did." "We need to find him," Grace said. "Get his confession, make him testify." "Even if you do, it won't matter. Cade owns half the judges in Kansas. He'll just bury the evidence again." "Not if we take it to the territorial governor," I said. "Make it public. Newspapers, telegrams. Spread it so wide Cade can't contain it." Reed grabbed a bag from under the bed, started stuffing clothes into it. His hands were steadier now, purpose steadying them. "I'll help you," he said. "I'll testify. Tell everything I know. It won't bring Judge Hayes back, but maybe it'll mean something." "It will," Eliza said. "It'll mean his death wasn't meaningless." We prepared to leave. Reed was at the door when we heard it. Horses, multiple horses, coming fast. I moved to the window, looked out. 6 riders approaching the town from the east. Leading them was Dixon May. "How did he find us?" Grace hissed. "Doesn't matter," I said. "We need to move, now." We ran for the stairs, got halfway down before the front door crashed open. 2 men rushed in, rifles raised. Grace fired first. The Winchester roared in the confined space. 1 man went down. The other dove for cover. We scrambled back up the stairs. More gunfire from below. Wood splintered. Eliza screamed. "Back window!" Reed shouted. "There's a roof. We can climb down." We ran down the hallway, into Reed's room. He was already at the window, pushing it open. "Go! I'll cover you!" Grace went first, dropped onto the roof below with a thud. Eliza followed. I grabbed Reed's arm. "You're coming too." "No, I'm done running." Reed picked up his pistol. "Go, please. Let me do this one thing right." I wanted to argue, but there was no time. Men were pounding up the stairs. I went through the window, dropped onto the roof. It was steep, slippery. I slid, caught myself. Grace was already at the edge, jumping down to the alley below. Eliza followed. Behind me, Reed appeared in the window, fired his pistol back into the room, once, twice. Then returned fire, a shotgun blast. Reed jerked backward, disappeared from view. "No!" Eliza screamed. I grabbed her, pulled her toward the edge of the roof. "We can't help him. Move!" We jumped. Hit the ground hard. Grace was already running toward where we'd tied the horses. We followed, lungs burning. Gunfire erupted behind us. A bullet whined past my ear. Another kicked up dirt at my feet. We reached the horses, mounted in a chaos of motion, spurred them forward. More riders appeared, cutting off the road back to Dodge City. We veered south into open country. They followed, gaining. Grace's horse stumbled. She nearly fell. Caught herself. But the hesitation cost us distance. Dixon's voice carried over the thunder of hooves. "You can't run forever, Grace. Give up and I'll make it quick." "Keep riding," Grace shouted back to us. "Don't stop." But I could see it. We weren't going to outrun them. Their horses were fresh. Ours were tired from the ride out. In another mile, maybe 2, they'd catch us. Then Eliza did something I didn't expect. She pulled her horse to a sliding stop, jumped off, started running toward a cluster of rocks. "What are you doing?" I screamed. "Making a stand. We can defend those rocks." It was desperate. Maybe suicide, but she was right. Running would just get us shot in the back. Grace and I wheeled around, followed Eliza to the rocks, dismounted, slapped the horses' rumps to send them running, took cover. Dixon and his men reined in 50 yards out, 6 of them, 3 of us. We had maybe 20 bullets between us. "Last chance, Grace," Dixon called. "Surrender and live." Grace raised her Winchester, fired. The bullet took off Dixon's hat. He yelped, fell off his horse. "That's my answer," Grace said. The men opened fire. Bullets ricocheted off rocks. We huddled down, blind and deaf from the noise. I fired back, didn't aim, just shot in their general direction, hoped to make them cautious. Eliza was pressed against me, trembling. Not from fear, from rage. She'd watched her mother die, watched her father die, watched Reed die. Now she was facing her own death with the same fury she'd shown hanging from that tree. "I won't let them take me," she said in my ear. "If it comes to it, if they're about to capture me, I need you to promise me something." I knew what she was asking. No. "Promise me, Garrett. I won't be tortured. I won't be used. I'll die free or not at all." I looked at her, saw the determination in her eyes, saw Clara looking back at me. Clara who'd fought her killers, who'd died refusing to break. "I promise," I said. The gunfire intensified. Closer now. They were advancing, using covering fire. This was it. The end. I'd spent 8 years running from death, and here it was, patient as stone. But I wasn't afraid. That was the strange part. I felt calm, almost peaceful. I was going to die protecting someone who mattered. That was better than dying alone in a silent house, suffocated by ghosts. Then Grace laughed. Actually laughed. "Look," she said, pointing. I looked, couldn't believe what I was seeing. From the north, a group of riders appeared. 20 of them, maybe more. Leading them was Samuel Chen, the old man from the general store. Behind him rode farmers, shopkeepers, ranchers, the townspeople who'd stood up to Dixon that morning. They weren't running away this time either. Samuel's voice boomed across the prairie. "Dixon May, you're outnumbered. Lay down your arms." Dixon's men looked around, saw themselves surrounded, their rifles lowered. Dixon himself stood up slowly. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead where Grace's bullet had grazed him. His face was twisted with hatred. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yes," Grace said, standing up from behind the rocks. "It is." Dixon's hand moved toward his pistol. Grace's Winchester was already aimed at his chest. "Don't," she said quietly. "I won't miss twice." Dixon's hand froze. Then slowly, he raised both hands. Samuel and the townspeople closed in, disarmed Dixon and his men, tied their hands with rope. "How did you find us?" I asked Samuel. "We didn't," the old man said. "We followed them." He gestured at Dixon. "Figured wherever they were going, you'd need help." Grace walked to Dixon, looked him in the eye. "Where's Luther Cade?" Dixon smiled, blood on his teeth. "Dodge City, waiting. He knows you're coming for that safety deposit box, and he'll be ready." "Good," Grace said. "I want him to see us coming." We mounted fresh horses borrowed from the townspeople, rode through the night. By the time we reached Dodge City, the sun was rising, painting the buildings gold and red. The bank sat in the center of town, 2 stories, brick, solid, a fortress. And standing in front of it, surrounded by 20 armed men, was Luther Cade. He was tall, silver-haired, dressed in an expensive suit. He looked like a senator, sounded like one too when he spoke. "Sheriff Tanner," he called out, "I'm disappointed. Breaking and entering? That's beneath you." Grace dismounted. So did I. So did Eliza. "We're not breaking in," Grace said. "We have a key." Eliza held up the brass key her father had given her. Cade's smile faltered, just for a moment. "That key opens nothing. Judge Hayes closed his account before he died." "Liar," Eliza said. "Prove it." Cade gestured to the bank. "Go ahead, try. The manager will confirm what I'm saying." Grace looked at me. I looked at Eliza. We walked toward the bank. Cade's men didn't stop us, didn't need to. Their confidence was proof enough. Inside, the bank manager was waiting, a thin man with spectacles. He looked nervous. "Box 47, Grace said. The manager swallowed. "I'm sorry, Sheriff. That box was closed 3 days ago. The contents were removed." "By who?" I demanded. "By order of Luther Cade. He held the secondary key, joint ownership with Judge Hayes." Eliza's face went white. "No, that's impossible. My father would never give Cade access." "I have the paperwork," the manager said. He pulled out a document, showed it to us. There it was, in black and white, Judge Hayes' signature, granting Cade joint access to Box 47, forged. Obviously forged, but legal enough to fool a banker. We walked back outside. Cade was still smiling. "I told you," he said. "There's no evidence. There never was. Judge Hayes was a broken man who took his own life. His daughter is a disturbed young woman, and you, Grace, are a former sheriff with delusions of heroism." "Former?" Grace's voice was ice. "I had you removed this morning. The town council voted. Unanimous. You're no longer the law in Dodge City." Grace didn't flinch. "Then I'm just a citizen, and citizens have rights too." "Of course, including the right to leave town peacefully, which I suggest you exercise. You, Mr. Walker, and poor Miss Hayes. Go somewhere quiet, start over, forget all this unpleasantness." "And if we don't?" I asked. Cade's smile widened. "Then I'll be forced to have you arrested for assault, for attempted robbery, for murder." "Murder?" Eliza's voice cracked. "Who did we murder?" "Thomas Reed. My men found his body in Silver Creek, shot to death. Witnesses say you were there. It was masterful. Every angle covered, every escape blocked. Cade had won. He knew it. We knew it. Unless—" "Mr. Cade," Eliza said suddenly, "may I ask you a question?" Cade looked amused. "Of course, my dear. Did you love my mother?" The question hung in the air. Cade's smile froze. I beg your pardon? My mother, Catherine Hayes. You knew her, didn't you? Before she married my father? Cade's face changed, just slightly. A flicker of something. Memory, regret. I knew her, he said carefully. A lovely woman. Her death was a tragedy. She died of pneumonia, according to the death certificate signed by Dr. Benjamin Hollis. Yes, terrible thing. Where is Dr. Hollis now? Eliza asked. I have no idea. He left Dodge City years ago, retired, I believe. Eliza smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. That's strange, because Thomas Reed told us Dr. Hollis is still alive, hiding in a mining camp called Silverado, 20 miles north of Silver Creek. I stared at her. This was news to me. Reed had mentioned Hollis, but not where he was. Cade's face went pale. You're lying. Am I? Would you like me to describe what Reed told us? How Hollis poisoned my mother on your orders? How he's been drinking himself to death for 15 years, trying to forget? That proves nothing, Cade said, but his voice had lost its confidence. It proves Dr. Hollis is alive, and if he's alive, he can testify about my mother's death, about how you paid him to falsify her death certificate, about Clara Walker. Cade's men shifted nervously. This wasn't the script. Their boss was supposed to be in control. You have no proof, Cade said. Not yet, Eliza agreed. But we will, because men like Dr. Hollis eventually want to confess, want to unburden themselves, and when he does, we'll be there. It was a gamble, a desperate bluff. But it was working. Cade was rattled. Find him, Cade said to his men. Find Hollis, now. 3 men broke off, rode hard toward the north. While we wait, Grace said, how about we talk about Clara Walker? Cade's eyes snapped to her. Who? My sister, Garrett's wife. She died 8 years ago, murdered in her home. You remember that, don't you? Vaguely, a tragedy, but what does that have to do with anything? She came to see me the morning she died, Grace said. Told me she needed to talk to the sheriff. Wouldn't say why, but I think she knew something about you. Cade laughed, but it sounded forced. This is absurd. You're grasping at straws. Maybe, Grace said. Or maybe you've been killing people who know too much for a very long time. Catherine Hayes, Clara Walker, Judge Hayes, Thomas Reed, and maybe it's finally catching up to you. The crowd was gathering now. Townspeople, curious, concerned. They'd heard the commotion, come to see what was happening. Samuel Chen pushed to the front. Behind him were the farmers and shopkeepers who'd ridden to our rescue. What's going on here? Samuel demanded. Nothing, Cade said quickly. Just a misunderstanding. Everyone go home. Doesn't look like nothing, Samuel said. Looks like you've got guns pointed at the former sheriff. Former sheriff who's making wild accusations, Cade said, trying to destroy my reputation with lies. Then let her speak, Samuel said. Let everyone hear. If it's lies, we'll know. This is a smart town. We can judge for ourselves. Cade looked around, saw the crowd growing, saw the trap closing. Fine, he said. Speak. Tell your lies. It won't change anything. Grace stepped forward, raised her voice so everyone could hear. 15 years ago, Luther Cade started bribing public officials, judges, lawyers, anyone who could help his business. Catherine Hayes discovered this, threatened to expose him, so he had her killed, made it look like pneumonia. Murmurs from the crowd, shocked, angry. Judge Hayes knew, Grace continued, but he had a daughter to protect, so he stayed quiet, took Cade's bribes, hated himself, until 3 months ago when he decided to confess, to put all the evidence in a safety deposit box and send it to the territorial governor. More murmurs, louder now. Cade found out, ordered Dixon May to stop Judge Hayes. Dixon murdered the judge, made it look like suicide, then tried to kill Eliza Hayes to prevent her from claiming her inheritance. The crowd was angry now, pushing closer. And 8 years ago, Grace's voice broke, my sister Clara discovered something that made her dangerous to Cade, so he had her killed too. Made it look random, made Garrett blame himself. I felt like I'd been punched, hearing it said out loud, hearing Grace say it. Clara's death wasn't my fault, wasn't random, was murder, planned, calculated. "This is slander," Cade shouted. "You have no proof, no evidence, just wild theories and grief-induced delusions." "You're right," Grace said. "I have no proof. Not yet, but I will. Because men like you always make mistakes. And when you do, I'll be there." Cade sneered. Bold words from a woman with no badge, no authority, no power. "She has us," Samuel said, "the people of this town. We'll be her authority." Other voices joined in. Agreement, support. Cade looked around, saw he was losing control. His face darkened. "Enough of this," he snarled. "Dixon, arrest them, all of them. Charge them with disturbing the peace." Dixon stepped forward, still wounded, still bleeding, but smiling. "With pleasure," he said. His men raised their rifles. Grace raised her Winchester. I drew my Colt. Standoff. Then Eliza stepped between us, hands empty, face calm. "Wait," she said. Everyone looked at her. "Mr. Cade," she said, "I want to make you an offer." "I'm listening," Cade said warily. "Let Grace and Garrett go. Drop all charges. Let them leave town in peace. And in exchange, I'll marry you." The words fell like stones into water. Ripples of shock spread through the crowd. I grabbed her arm. "Eliza, no." She pulled free, kept her eyes on Cade. "I'm serious. Marry me. Legal, public, with witnesses, and you'll get what you wanted. My father's land, his property, all of it becomes yours." Cade studied her. "And why would you do this?" "Because I'm tired of running, tired of fighting. You've won. I accept that. But I want my friends to live. That's my price." "Eliza," Grace said, "don't do this." "It's my choice," Eliza said, "and I'm making it." Cade smiled, slow, predatory. "Agreed. We'll marry tonight. At the church. The whole town can watch." "No," I said, "so this is insane. We'll find another way." "There is no other way," Eliza said. She looked at me then. Her green eyes were clear, calm, and I saw the plan there, the gamble. She was buying time, creating an opportunity. She had something planned. I didn't know what, but I trusted her. "Fine," I said, "but I'm giving you away. At the altar, that's my condition." Cade laughed. "How touching. The defeated cowboy plays father of the bride. Agreed." The crowd began to disperse, confused, disturbed. This wasn't the ending they'd expected. Cade's men lowered their rifles. Crisis averted. For now. Cade himself walked to Eliza, took her hand, kissed it. "Tonight, my dear, 7 o'clock. Don't be late." He walked away, surrounded by his men, victorious. When they were gone, Grace rounded on Eliza. "What the hell are you doing?" "Buying us time," Eliza said, "and setting a trap." "What trap?" I asked. Eliza glanced around, made sure no one was listening, then whispered, "The wedding will be public. The whole town will be there. Cade can't have us arrested or killed in front of everyone, not without looking guilty." "So?" Grace said. "So during the ceremony, when the priest asks if anyone objects, you're going to object. You're going to stand up and accuse Cade publicly, in front of witnesses." "He'll deny it," I said. "Of course he will. But it will plant doubt, get people questioning. And while he's defending himself, Grace will slip away, ride to Silverado, find Dr. Hollis, get his confession." "You said that was a bluff," Grace said. "It was. But now I'm making it real. Reed told us Hollis exists. He's out there somewhere, and if anyone can find him, it's you, Grace. You're the best tracker I know." Grace shook her head. "Even if I find him, even if he confesses, it won't matter. Cade owns the courts. He'll just bury the evidence again. Not if you take it to the territorial governor, not if you make it public. Newspapers, telegrams. Spread it so far and wide that Cade can't contain it." It was insane. Reckless. 1,000 things could go wrong, but it was also brilliant. "And what about you?" I asked Eliza. "While we're riding around, you'll be married to a murderer." Eliza smiled, sad, brave. "I'll survive. I've survived worse." "No," I said, "I'm not leaving you with him." "You have to." "I won't." She grabbed my hand, held it tight. "Garrett, listen to me. This is the only way. If we fight now, we all die. If we run, Cade hunts us down. This buys us time, gives us a chance." I wanted to argue, wanted to find another way, but I couldn't. She was right. One condition, I said. The moment you're in danger, real danger, you get out, you run. Forget the plan, forget everything. Just survive. I promise, she said. Grace sighed. I hate this plan, but I don't have a better one. She looked at Eliza. You're braver than I gave you credit for. I'm my father's daughter, Eliza said, and my mother's. They both stood up to Cade. I can do the same. We spent the rest of the day preparing. Grace gathered supplies for the ride to Silverado. I cleaned my guns. Eliza disappeared to find a dress. As sunset approached, the church bells began to ring. The whole town gathered, curious, horrified, unable to look away. I stood in the back of the church watching people file in, saw Cade at the altar, resplendent in a new suit, saw Dixon standing beside him, arm in a sling, saw the townspeople filling the pews, whispering. Grace stood beside me. This is wrong. Everything about this is wrong. I know. If we let her go through with this and something happens to her, I'll never forgive myself. Neither will I. The doors at the back opened. Eliza walked in. She wore a simple white dress, no veil, no flowers, just white fabric and determination. She walked down the aisle alone, proud, unbroken. When she reached me, she stopped, took my arm. Ready? She whispered. No, I whispered back, but let's do it anyway. We walked together to the altar. Cade was smiling. Dixon was smirking. The priest looked uncomfortable. I handed Eliza over, stepped back, every instinct screaming at me to grab her and run. The ceremony began. Words I didn't hear. Promises I didn't believe. Then the priest said the magic words. If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace. Grace stood up. I object, she said loudly. The church went silent. Cade turned. On what grounds? On the grounds that you're a murderer, that you killed Judge Hayes, that you killed Catherine Hayes, that you killed Clara Walker, that you've corrupted this town for 15 years. Gasps from the crowd. Cade's face turned red. This is absurd. I'm a respected businessman. I've done nothing wrong. Then you won't mind if we investigate, Grace said. A real investigation by federal authorities. There's nothing to investigate, Cade shouted. Then prove it. Open your books. Show us your contracts. Let everyone see. Cade sputtered. Dixon stepped forward, hand on his gun. That's enough, Grace, Dixon said. You're disturbing a legal ceremony. There's nothing legal about this, Grace said. Eliza's being coerced. Anyone can see that. I'm not being coerced, Eliza said. Everyone looked at her. I'm marrying Mr. Cade of my own free will, because I love him. The lie was so blatant, so obvious, that several people in the crowd laughed. But legally, it didn't matter. If Eliza said she consented, she consented. Grace saw the trap, closed her mouth, sat down. The ceremony continued. I watched, helpless, as Eliza and Cade exchanged vows, as rings were produced, as the priest pronounced them man and wife. Cade kissed Eliza. She didn't pull away, didn't resist, just endured. When it was done, Cade turned to the crowd. A celebration. Everyone to my house, food and drink for all. The crowd filed out, talking, confused, not sure what they'd just witnessed. I found Grace outside. Now what? Now I ride, she said. Tonight, find Hollis, get his confession, come back before Cade can hurt her. I'm coming with you. No, you need to stay here. Watch Eliza. If anything happens, if Cade tries anything, you get her out. Consequences be damned. I nodded. Be careful. You too. Grace mounted her horse, rode into the darkness. I went to Cade's house, a mansion on the edge of town. 3 stories, columns, everything Judge Hayes's modest home wasn't. Inside, people were drinking, eating, pretending this was normal, that forced marriages happened every day. I found Eliza in a corner, alone. Cade was across the room, talking to Dixon and his men. You all right? I asked quietly. Define all right, she said. Are you hurt? Did he hurt you? Not yet, but the night's young. I wanted to grab her, carry her out, run. But we had a plan, had to trust it. Grace is on her way to Silverado, I said. Good. Then we wait. Across the room, Cade raised his glass. A toast to my beautiful bride. Everyone drank, except me, except Eliza. Cade walked over, put his arm around Eliza's waist. She stiffened, but didn't pull away. You should go, Mr. Walker, Cade said to me. The celebration is for family and friends. You're neither. I'm leaving, I said. But I'll be close, very close. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I walked out. But I didn't go far, just to the street outside, where I could see the house, see the windows. Hours passed. The party wound down. Guests left. Lights went out, until only one light remained. A window on the second floor, Eliza's room. I watched that window all night, gun in my hand, ready. If that light went out suddenly, if I heard a scream, I'd storm in, kill anyone in my way. But the light stayed on, steady, constant, and when dawn came, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The light was still on. But Eliza was standing at the window, looking out, looking at me. She pressed her hand against the glass, held it there. I raised my hand, pressed it against the air between us. Then she turned away. The light went out, and I stood there in the dawn, wondering if I just made the biggest mistake of my life. Grace didn't come back the first day or the second. I stayed outside Cade's house, watching, waiting. Samuel Chen brought me food, water, told me the town was with me. On the third day, I saw Eliza again. She came to the window. Her face was pale, thin, but she was alive. She mouthed something. I couldn't make it out. Then she held up 3 fingers. 3 days. She was telling me she could last 3 more days. I nodded, held up my own 3 fingers. She smiled. Sad, brave, then disappeared from the window. On the evening of the 3rd day, Grace rode back into town. I ran to meet her. Did you find him? Yes, she said. Her face was grim. Dr. Benjamin Hollis, in Silverado, just like Reed said. And? She pulled a piece of paper from her coat. He's dead. Someone got there first. But I found this in his room. A letter. A confession. I took it. Read it. It was everything. Catherine Hayes' murder. The poison. The forged death certificate. The bribes. And at the end, a section about Clara. I wasn't there when she died, but I know what happened. Luther Cade sent 2 men. They were supposed to scare her, make her forget what she'd overheard. But she fought, and they killed her, strangled her, made it look like a robbery gone wrong. I signed the death certificate, said natural causes due to trauma. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My hands shook. 8 years. 8 years of blaming myself, and it was murder all along. This is it, I said. This is proof. Maybe, Grace said, or maybe a good lawyer argues it's fake, that Hollis was drunk, that we fabricated it. It's better than nothing. Is it? Or is it just another piece of paper Cade will bury? I looked up at Eliza's window. The light was on again. We have to try, I said. We owe her that much. Grace nodded. Then we take this to the governor. Today, right now. What about Eliza? We get her first, then we go. We walked to Cade's front door, pounded on it. A servant answered, looked nervous. We're here to see Eliza, I said. Mrs. Cade is resting. She's not receiving visitors. I don't care. Get her. Now. The servant tried to close the door. I blocked it with my boot. Cade appeared at the top of the stairs, still in his nightclothes. What's the meaning of this? We're taking Eliza, Grace said. She's coming with us. She's my wife. She stays with me. She was coerced. The marriage is invalid. Prove it. We will, in federal court. With this. Grace held up Hollis' letter. Cade's face went pale, then red, then white again. Where did you get that? Hollis wrote it before your men killed him. I had nothing to do with Hollis' death. Of course you didn't. Just like you had nothing to do with Judge Hayes, or Catherine Hayes, or Clara Walker. You're innocent of everything. Cade descended the stairs slowly. You have no proof. That letter is hearsay. Inadmissible. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, Eliza is coming with us, over my dead body. That, I said, can be arranged. I drew my Colt, aimed it at Cade's chest. He stopped walking, raised his hands. "You'd murder me? In front of witnesses? Self-defense. You threatened us. We defended ourselves." Cade smiled. "You won't shoot me. You're not a killer, Walker." He was right. I wasn't. 8 years of peace had softened me, but 8 years of grief had also sharpened something else. A willingness to cross lines I'd never crossed before. I cocked the hammer. "Try me," I said. For a long moment nobody moved. Then Eliza appeared at the top of the stairs, still in her white dress, pale, exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, but alive. "It's all right, Garrett," she said. "Put the gun down. Eliza, we're leaving. All of us. Right now." "No," she said. "You're leaving. I'm staying." My hand wavered. "What?" "I made a deal. I'm honoring it. Eliza, he'll kill you. Maybe. But he'll do it legally. As my husband. And when he does, this whole town will know. They'll know what he is." She descended the stairs, stood beside Cade. "Go," she said to me. "Take Hollis' letter to the governor. Make it public. Destroy Cade's reputation. But leave me here." "I can't," I said. "You have to." Cade put his arm around her, possessive, triumphant. "You heard my wife," he said. "Well, leave, while you still can." Grace grabbed my arm, pulled me toward the door. "Come on, Garrett. We have work to do." I didn't move. Couldn't move. Eliza met my eyes one last time. "For my father," she said, "for my mother, for Clara. Finish this." And I understood. She was giving us time, sacrificing herself so we could act. I lowered the gun, turned, walked out. Grace and I mounted our horses, rode out of town as the sun climbed higher. Behind us, Dodge City disappeared into heat haze. But I knew we'd be back. And when we returned, it would be with the full weight of federal law. Either that, or we'd burn the whole town down, trying. We rode hard for 3 days, north through Kansas into Nebraska territory, toward the territorial capital where the governor kept his office. Hollis's letter was tucked inside my coat. I checked it every hour, paranoid that it had vanished. Grace barely spoke during the ride. When we stopped to rest the horses, she'd stare back south toward Dodge City, toward Eliza. "She's still alive," I said on the second night. "Cade won't kill her. Not yet. She's too valuable." "Valuable how?" Grace asked. "He has her land, her inheritance. What else does he need her for?" "Insurance. As long as she's alive, we can't accuse him of murdering her. The moment she dies, we come back with federal marshals and tear his world apart. Unless he makes it look like an accident, then we better hurry." On the morning of October 18th, we reached the capital, a town twice the size of Dodge City. Brick buildings, paved streets, the smell of coal smoke and progress. The governor's office was in the center of town, a white building with columns, guards at the door. We dismounted, tied our horses, walked up the steps. A guard blocked our path, young, clean uniform. He looked at our dusty clothes with suspicion. "State your business," he said. "We're here to see Governor Morris," Grace said. "It's urgent." "The governor doesn't see walk-ins. You need an appointment. This can't wait. We have evidence of corruption. Murder. We need to speak with him now." The guard's expression didn't change. "Everyone who comes here has evidence of something. Write a letter. Submit it through proper channels." I stepped forward. "People are dying, right now, while we stand here talking. Every minute we waste is another minute a killer walks free. That's what the local sheriff is for. Take it up with them." "The local sheriff is dead," Grace said, "and we're accusing the man who had her killed." The guard sighed. "Look, I sympathize, but I have orders. No appointments, no entry. That's the rule." I was about to argue when a voice called from inside. "Let them through, James." The guard straightened. "Sir?" A man appeared in the doorway, tall, gray hair, eyes that had seen too much and remembered all of it. Governor Marcus Morris. "I said let them through," he repeated. "I'll see them." The guard stepped aside. We entered. Governor Morris led us to his office. A large room with windows overlooking the street, maps on the walls, books everywhere, the organized chaos of a man who actually worked. He gestured to chairs. We sat. He remained standing. "You have 5 minutes," he said. "Convince me this isn't a waste of my time." Grace pulled out Hollis's letter, set it on his desk. Morris picked it up, read it. His expression didn't change. When he finished, he set it down. "Dr. Benjamin Hollis. I remember him. Good doctor until he started drinking." "He drank because of what he'd done," I said. "Because Luther Cade forced him to poison Catherine Hayes, to falsify death certificates, to cover up murders. So this letter claims, but Hollis is dead, correct? Can't testify?" "He was murdered to prevent him from testifying." "By who? Do you have proof?" Grace leaned forward. "Governor, Luther Cade has been bribing public officials for 15 years, judges, lawyers, anyone who could help his business interests. When people discovered what he was doing, he had them killed." "Names," Morris said. "I need names, dates, specifics." "Catherine Hayes, murdered 15 years ago. Death certificate said pneumonia. It was poison. Proof? Hollis's letter, which could be fake. What else? Judge Arthur Hayes, Catherine's husband, murdered 3 days ago, made to look like suicide. Evidence? A forged warrant, a daughter being hunted, a deputy who tried to kill her. And the daughter is where now? Married to Cade, against her will, being held hostage." Morris sat down, rubbed his temples. "I'm going to be honest with you. What you're describing is a massive conspiracy. 15 years, multiple murders, systematic corruption. If even half of this is true, it's the biggest scandal in territorial history." "It's all true," I said. "Maybe, but true and provable are different things. Hollis' letter is a start, but it's not enough. Any decent lawyer will tear it apart. Dead man's confession, no cross-examination, inadmissible hearsay." "Then what do we need?" Grace asked. "Living witnesses, financial records, physical evidence linking Cade to the crimes, something a jury can see and touch and believe." "We don't have time for that," I said. "Eliza Hayes is in danger. Right now. Cade married her to get her property. Once the paperwork is final, he'll kill her." Morris stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street below. "Tell me about Eliza Hayes," he said. So we did. About finding her tied up, about her father's murder, about the forged loans, about her desperate gamble to buy us time. When we finished, Morris was quiet for a long moment. "She sounds brave," he finally said. "She is," I said, "and if we don't act, she'll die brave. But she'll still die." Morris turned to face us. "I can't send federal marshals based on a letter from a dead drunk, but I can do something else. I can come to Dodge City myself, personally, observe, ask questions. If I see probable cause, I'll act." "When?" Grace asked. "The trial is set for November 15th. That gives us 4 weeks to gather additional evidence, prepare witnesses, and ensure this is done right. Justice delayed is not justice denied if it means justice is thorough." 4 weeks, I said. "Eliza has to survive 4 weeks with Cade." "Then we make sure she does. I'll send federal marshals to Dodge City tomorrow. They'll watch Cade's house. If he tries anything, they'll intervene." It wasn't what I wanted, but it was all we had. "Thank you, Governor," Grace said. Morris nodded. "Don't thank me yet. If this goes to trial and we lose, Cade walks free, and you two will be charged with harassment, slander, and wasting the court's time." "We won't lose," I said. "See that you don't." We left the governor's office, stood on the steps in the afternoon sun. 4 weeks, Grace said. "Can she last that long?" "She has to. And if she can't," I looked south, toward Dodge City, toward Eliza. "Then I go get her. Governor be damned." Grace smiled. "I'll come with you." We rode back to Dodge City, arrived 3 days later. The federal marshals were already there. 2 men in dark suits watching Cade's house from across the street. I approached them. "Has anything happened?" "Quiet," one said. "Mrs. Cade comes to the window every morning. Waves. Goes back inside. No signs of distress." "You're sure?" "We're professionals, Mr. Walker. If something was wrong, we'd know." I wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that Eliza was safe. but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. 4 weeks passed, like 4 years. Every day I stood across from Cade's house, watching, waiting. Every morning, Eliza came to the window, waved, went back inside. She looked thinner each day, paler, but alive. Grace spent the time gathering evidence, talking to townspeople, building a case. Samuel Chen and the others helped, testified about Cade's threats, his bribes, the fear he'd spread through Dodge City for years. And finally, on November 15th, we boarded a train to the capital. Eliza came too. The marshals brought her. She looked like a ghost, all bone and hollow eyes, but when she saw me, she smiled. "I told you I'd survive," she said. "You did more than survive. You gave us time, and we used it." The courthouse was packed, every seat filled, people standing in the back, in the hallways, outside in the street. Luther Cade sat at the defense table, expensive lawyers on both sides. He looked smaller now, older. 4 weeks in custody had aged him. Dixon May sat in shackles nearby. Separate trial, but same charges. He looked beaten, defeated. The prosecution called witness after witness. Samuel Chen testified about the bribes, the threats, the fear. Other townspeople followed, each one telling a piece of the story. Then Grace took the stand. She presented Hollis's letter, testified about finding it in Silverado, about Hollis's death. The defense tried to discredit it, called it hearsay, fabrication. But Governor Morris had done his job. He'd found financial records, bank transfers, payments from Cade to judges, lawyers, officials. The evidence mounted, day after day, week after week. Then it was Eliza's turn. She walked to the witness stand slowly, wore a simple black dress, no jewelry, no makeup, just herself. The prosecutor asked her to state her name. "Eliza Catherine Hayes," she said. Her voice was steady, strong. "Tell the jury what happened to your mother." Eliza took a breath. "My mother was murdered by Luther Cade when I was 8 years old." Murmurs from the crowd. The judge banged his gavel. "He poisoned her, paid Dr. Hollis to make it look like pneumonia, all because she discovered he was bribing my father." "And your father, Judge Arthur Hayes?" "Also murdered by Dixon May. On Cade's orders, my father was going to confess, expose everything, so Cade had him killed. Made it look like suicide." "How do you know this?" "Dixon told me. When he had me tied up, he said my father was too weak to live with what he'd done. Said killing him was a mercy." The crowd erupted. Angry shouts. The judge banged again. "Order!" The prosecutor continued. "Mrs. Hayes, why did you marry Luther Cade?" "To buy time. He was going to kill Garrett Walker and Grace Tanner. I offered myself in exchange for their lives." "Were you coerced?" "Yes." "Did you love Luther Cade?" "No, I hated him. I still hate him." She looked directly at Cade as she said it. He stared back, expressionless. The defense lawyer stood. "Mrs. Hayes, isn't it true that you stood in a church and swore to love and honor my client? In front of witnesses?" "Yes." "And you did so of your own free will?" "I did so under duress. But no one forced you, no gun to your head, no knife to your throat. He threatened people I cared about. That's force. Or it's a choice you made, and now you regret it. I regret not having the courage to kill him when I had the chance." Gasps from the crowd. The defense lawyer smiled. "So you admit to harboring murderous intent toward my client?" "I admit to wanting justice, real justice, not the corrupted version this territory has been living under for 15 years. The trial lasted 2 weeks. More witnesses, more evidence. The defense tried everything: character assassination, procedural delays, technical objections. Nothing worked. On November 30th, the jury returned, guilty on all counts. Luther Cade was sentenced to hang. Dixon May got life in prison. The courtroom erupted in cheers, but I didn't cheer. I watched Cade's face as the sentence was read. He looked at Eliza, mouthed something. I couldn't tell what. Eliza didn't react, just stood and walked out. I followed her, found her outside on the courthouse steps, staring at nothing. "It's over," I said. "Is it?" She turned to look at me. He's going to die. Hanged. Because of what I said in there. He's going to die because of what he did. You just told the truth. I know, but it doesn't feel like victory. Just feels empty. Grace joined us. The judge granted the annulment. Your marriage to Cade is void. Legally, you were never married. And my father's property? Returned to you. All of it. Cade's assets are being seized. You'll get restitution. Eliza nodded. I don't want his money. Give it to charity, schools, orphanages. Use it to build a medical clinic, train doctors, make sure no one else dies because the only doctor in town is corrupt. You should keep some, I said, for yourself. I don't need money, Garrett. I need purpose. The execution was set for December 20th. Luther Cade would hang at dawn. Eliza declined to attend. I don't need to watch him die. Knowing he's gone is enough. I went, not to celebrate, just to witness, to know it was really over. The gallows stood in the town square. A crowd gathered, hundreds of people, some angry, some sad, most just curious. Cade was led out in chains. He'd lost more weight. His hair had gone completely white. They read the charges, the sentence, asked if he had any last words. Cade looked out at the crowd, found me, locked eyes. Garrett Walker, he said. His voice carried. You think you've won, but you haven't. I built this territory. Everything you see, roads, towns, progress, that was me. And when I'm gone, it'll all fall apart. Mark my words. Any remorse? The chaplain asked. Any confession? Cade laughed. For what? Doing what needed to be done? No, I regret nothing. History will vindicate me. They put the hood over his head, the noose around his neck. The trapdoor opened. It was quick, professional, over in seconds. Luther Cade was dead. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just tired. I walked back to my ranch. Snow was falling. Big, fat flakes that covered the prairie in white. Inside, a fire was burning. Eliza and Grace were waiting. Is it done? Grace asked. Yes. How do you feel? Empty. Eliza stood, walked to me, put her hand on my arm. Thank you, she said, for everything. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Without you, I'd be dead. She leaned up, kissed my cheek. Soft, brief. Then she stepped back. I've made a decision. What? I asked. I'm going to medical school. Real training. Everything my mother would have wanted. Everything I've wanted since I was 8 years old. That's wonderful, Grace said. I'll have to go east, to a school that accepts women. It'll take years. But you'll come back? I asked. Tried to keep the hope out of my voice. Failed. Eliza smiled. I don't know, maybe, if there's a reason to. She was giving me an opening, a chance to say what I'd been feeling for months. But Clara's ghost still stood between us, even now, even after everything. You'll make a great doctor, I said instead. Her smile faltered. Thank you. She left in the spring, when the prairie turned green again. Grace and I stood on the train platform, watched her board. You should have told her, Grace said. Told her what? That you love her. It's too soon. It's been 8 years, Garrett. Clara's gone. Eliza's here. How much longer are you going to wait? Until I'm sure. Until I know I'm not just replacing one woman with another. Grace sighed. You're an idiot. Probably. The train pulled away. Eliza waved from the window. Then she was gone. Life went on. Months passed, then a year, then 2. Eliza wrote letters, long letters about medical school, about anatomy and surgery and the future. I wrote back, short letters about ranch life and weather and nothing important. But in every letter, I wanted to say more. I never did. Until 3 years later, a telegram arrived. Graduated, stop. Doctor, now stop. Coming home, stop. Eliza. I read it 3 times, then saddled my horse, rode to town, found Grace at the sheriff's office. She'd been reinstated, was building something good. She's coming back, I said. Grace looked up, smiled. About time. I need to tell her before she arrives. Tell her what? The truth. I sent a telegram. Congratulations, stop. Have something to say. Stop will meet you at station stop. Garrett. The reply came an hour later. Me too. Stop. See you soon. Stop, Eliza. The day she arrived, I woke at dawn, shaved, dressed in my best shirt, rode to town, waited on the platform. The train arrived. Steam, noise, people. Then I saw her. Eliza stepped off, older, confident, carrying a medical bag, everything I'd hoped she'd become. Our eyes met. She smiled, walked toward me. We met in the middle. Hello, Garrett? Hello, Dr. Hayes? You said you had something to say. I do. I took a breath. I love you. I've loved you since the day I cut you down from that tree. I was just too broken to admit it, too scared to let go of the past. But I'm not scared anymore. And if you'll have me, I'd like to spend whatever time I have left making you happy. Eliza stared at me, silent. Then she laughed, reached into her bag, pulled out a piece of paper. I wrote a speech, she said, on the train, about how I was going to tell you I loved you, how I was tired of waiting. It was very eloquent. And you just stole my thunder. She crumpled the paper. So I'll just say this. Yes, yes to everything. Yes to you. I kissed her, right there on the platform, in front of everyone. People cheered. Grace appeared. Finally. Eliza pulled back. I have a condition. Anything. I'm opening a clinic. Free medical care. You support that? You support me. I'll build it myself. Good. She kissed me again. Let's go home. We were married 6 months later, in the same church, but this time it was real. Grace walked her down the aisle. Samuel Chen stood as my best man. When the priest asked if anyone objected, we all held our breath, then laughed when no one spoke. We exchanged vows, simple, honest, to love, to honor, until death. When we kissed, something inside me finally settled, like a bone snapping back into place. We built the clinic. Eliza saw patients, never charged a fee, just asked people to pay what they could. Grace visited often. The three of us, bound by tragedy, had become family. Years passed, seasons turned, and every night I'd look at Clara's photograph, still on the nightstand. Thank you, I'd whisper, for teaching me what love meant, for making room in my heart for someone else. Because that's what Clara had done. Through her death, she'd shown me how precious life was, how important it was to fight for what mattered. On our 5th anniversary, Eliza told me she was pregnant. I cried. Our daughter was born in spring. We named her Catherine Clara Walker, after 2 women who died fighting for what was right. Little Kate grew up running through prairie grass, learning to ride, learning to be brave. When she was old enough, we told her the story, about her grandparents, about Luther Cade, about how doing the right thing sometimes means risking everything. She listened, serious, thoughtful. I want to be like them, she said, brave and good. You already are, Eliza said. Years became decades. Kate grew up, became a lawyer, fought corruption. Grace retired, moved into a house next to ours. And Eliza and I grew old together, gray hair, wrinkled skin, still holding hands. On my 75th birthday, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Any regrets? Eliza asked. I thought about it. No, Clara's death broke me, but you put me back together. How could I regret that? Even the pain? Especially the pain. It made me who I am. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I love you, Garrett Walker. And I love you, Eliza Walker. The sun dipped below the horizon. The prairie turned purple and gold. I'd spent 8 years running from my past, 8 years hiding. But Eliza had shown me that silence doesn't protect you. Action does. Standing up does. Fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. Clara had died because someone chose power over people. But Eliza lived because we'd chosen differently, and that made all the difference. The end.